Hello, it's Tuesday, March 19th, 2016, and as of this recording, I'm still depressed, but I'm not dead. Hey, welcome back everybody. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate all of you who have come along sitting shotgun on this ride with me. I am trying to figure out a way to have more of a better rhythm to the release of the shows here. I think I'd like it to be, ideally I'd want to go, twice a week if I can. I don't know if I have that much content to put out. At some point I imagine I'll get even more boring than I think I am. But, like a Sunday, Wednesday kind of release type thing, just kind of a way to keep myself occupied and on task. And also, when I'm the serious podcaster of the depressed world and everybody wants to listen to me, maybe you want to, plan your day around me and pop up the popcorn when you know the show's coming out. I think I've got a line on how I can do this. I am kind of struggling with the timing of when I can actually get to record the show versus just, editing it isn't as big a deal. I can take some time doing that, but finding a time when it's quiet, for when I'm motivated to actually put something down and talk about something. So I'm hoping I can get ahead of all this and be a little more consistent with how I get these shows put out. A little more housekeeping for this show. I have officially changed over my social profile. No longer are you going to have to listen to me painfully struggle through saying things like depressed .0.ded or the underscores in place of the dots or whatnot. So effective today, although it's been probably a week, I have switched over to a new profile, new to you, kind of old to me. And even though I am in fact depressed and not dead myself personally, I can be found all over the interwebs with the username jamoalki. And I'm going to spend time on this show kind of explaining what that is. And that's jamoalki. And so I'll be, jamoalki at gmail.com. On Twitter, jamoalki, it would be my username. There's even going to be a web page in the future, jamoalki.something. And hopefully I can get all that worked out. And since it is a profile that I have used personally for some time, I do want to make sure I've kind of scrubbed it of folks who maybe don't want to be associated or who I haven't contacted yet to say, hey, look, I'm thinking of using this new or this profile for this podcast. Are you okay with that? And I'm going to explain a little bit about what I've gone through the past couple of weeks, trying to make sure that's okay with the parties involved. So I'm babbling on already, and so let's just get started. How about that? So currently right now on my body, which you cannot see, I have two tattoos. First tattoo that I have that most people, anybody would be able to see is on my right arm. It's kind of, it's been described as like, a tribal armband kind of thing. And the story of this tattoo goes back a little ways to my first marriage. Things were rocky. We got tattoos together. Maybe it was a great idea, maybe it wasn't, but we did it. And it's it's not it's not a tattoo of Big Bird or Superman on my arm, so it really doesn't stand out. It's not really that big a deal, but I've got it. And once upon a time when I was more fit and muscular, it might have looked kind of cool up there on my arm, but right now it just kind of looks like a tattoo on a fat guy. And then a few years back, I'm trying to think, probably 5 years or so ago, I was depressed then too. And things weren't necessarily going that well in lots of different areas of my life. And, at that time, I was still married to my first wife, but we, functionally were not living as a married couple, although we lived in the same house. I was fortunate enough that we got along well enough that I could be in the same house with her and my girls We had separate rooms, and I was able to help raise my girls and be there for them. But work wasn't great, and my emotional health wasn't great, and worse. Looking back, I can say it was a lot worse than I was willing to accept, or even probably understood at that time. But my driving force was my girls, and I think I mentioned before, that marriage brought 2 stepdaughters into it from my first wife, and then we as a couple, we had 2 additional daughters. And early on, when there was just the stepdaughters, one was 6, one was 3, 2, 3, 5, 6, something like that. And the 6-year-old, she's fantastic. She's a young woman now. Geez, wow, am I old? But she was kind of caught in that the divorce from her mom and her dad, and was old enough to understand that, probably was aware of some of the problems that her 2 parents were having. And so we didn't quite get on as well as maybe I would have liked. And I don't know that I was necessarily capable of making it better than it was, but we certainly didn't have a bad relationship. The younger of the 2 sisters there, she was my little buddy. She was 3, and if there's one thing I can say about me, is I know how to get along with 3 and 4-year-olds. And we did everything together. When I wasn't at work, we went for walks, we played, we dressed up a little bit every now and then. We just had fun, and it was, quickly she became somebody very important to me. Fast forward a ways, and then, my wife and I, my first wife and I, we have our first child, and I was, that became me, that became my identity. And, the joke was that I was her daddy. She wasn't my little girl. I mean, I kind of did everything for her. Everything that I could do. And, not to say that her mom, I was making up for things her mom should have done or whatnot. She was, is a great mom. But I would just, stereotypical pictures galore. There's videos of me dancing with a naked baby in my arms to something, probably a Stevie Wonder song. I had the little papoose kind of thing. What the heck are they called? What I'm saying? You kind of strap the kid to your chest, and we would do that. I would take her. We'd go to the mall and just walk around the mall, and as soon as I could have her facing forward in that gear, I did. And we walked around and we checked out everything. I pointed out to her, walked her up to different things. I thought, oh my gosh, this is my kid. This is my daughter. She's going to get everything. And, lots of other things. Like I said, I was the stereotypical silly first-time dad. Everything that went into her body went into my body. So if she got new baby food, I tried it. Formula, I tried it. Breast milk, I tried it. Everything. And, I wanted, if she was going to experience it, I wanted to experience it as well. So I felt like that would make me a better dad somehow. And yeah, so she was just, oh my gosh, it was just crazy. And so that was my identity. And then we had our second daughter, so fourth daughter in the household. And, that was, for a while there, we joked that, the first one was mine, the second one was hers, kind of thing. And whatever, it was a joking thing, right? We weren't really serious about it. But, as a second time dad, yeah, so there weren't quite as many pictures, there weren't quite as many but there was still just that bond that I'm sure any mom or dad out there can appreciate. And, so we go forward a couple more years. So we're probably in the house, there's probably a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old. That doesn't seem, it must be a little older than that. So probably, I will say 5-year-old, 7-year-old. And how old are the other ones? Geez, I can't even do the math right now. But, a big household. And I had all these feelings about all these girls in my life, or these women in my life, if you take into account my ex-wife. 2 of my own daughters, who I love to death, two stepdaughters who I just loved to death. We had varying levels of relationship, right? I wasn't the older girls. I wasn't their dad. I never presumed to be their dad. I was always, I would encourage them to have their dad as part of in their life. And unfortunately, he chose not to take that route, not to be in their life. And I guess to my benefit, because I've gotten, quite a lot of experience with their lives in my life. And so we're back to the tattoo, right? So, I felt like I wanted to kind of make a switch. Like I'd always been, my first daughter's daddy, and that was my profile, daughter's name daddy, at gmail.com, daughter's name daddy on Twitter, daughter's name daddy everywhere, right? I had a hat made, I had 2 hats made with that on there. And I felt like, while I felt every bit still that person, I wanted to make a switch to not just my persona, I guess, the hats I would wear, the email address I would give out, not to be just the one girl. I wanted something that reflected all 4 of my girls in a way that kind of always had them, even a little closer on my mind or in my heart, as well as kind of showing to the 4 of them, like, hey, you're all 4 my girls. And I wasn't quite sure how I could do that. And what I found out I could do is, so I took their names, their 4 names, and if I took the first 2 letters of each of their names, and in order of age, youngest to oldest, I would get this, Jamoalki. And I wrote it out and I looked at it and I said, well, hell, that could be a word, right? Jamoalki, I can say it that way. Other people have thought, oh, well, that's weird. How do you say that? And to me, it's just Jamoalki. And, in doing that, for me anyway, it kind of made them, a permanent part of me physically as well as emotionally. So on my left arm is that word, jamoalki, all lowercase, so that it's not, first letter, it's not a proper noun where the J gets capitalized and each of the other girls don't get capitalized. It's not some funky looking every other letter capitalized. So it's always lowercase. So I had this tattooed on my arm, and that's kind of my persona that I want to be. I wanted to be the dad for these 4 girls. So I went out, I got an email address, and I was on Twitter and, blah, 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 all those kind of things, right? And, I kept it kind of low key, right? Like, so that jamoalki at Gmail wasn't my primary account, because I'd used this other one for so long. So I didn't really spend a lot of time sharing it with anybody. Like, not even sure, maybe my mom has seen the tattoo. I don't know. I guess she probably has somewhere in a picture or something. In fact, I didn't even show the girls. It was, a couple of weeks after I had done it that they even found out about it. And again, because it wasn't, initially it wasn't as much for, I didn't want to puff out my chest and say, hey, look what I did. It was, I did this, and it was very important and very intimate for me. And, I guess part of it is I wasn't really sure how to bring up the subject with the girls and their mom. We as husband and wife, like I said, we weren't at all husband and wife, only, on paper. And, there were a lot of days there were, months when I just felt like, okay, today's the day she's going to decide she doesn't want me around and I'm out the door. Today's the day she's going to, meet somebody else. I accepted that, we weren't going to reconcile. But, so that meant that, she had every right and to go out and be with someone else, and, having your current husband, your legal husband, living in the same house as you would put a big damper on that. And I understood that. I had no idea what I would do if that came up. So I wasn't, it wasn't necessarily sure, it wasn't always most comfortable thing bringing things up with her and talking with her, because I always kind of felt like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, she's well within her rights to say, okay, look, dude, it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, blah, blah, blah. Time for you to go. And for all the different reasons, financially, emotionally, anything. I wasn't ready for a change like that. So anyway, so that's where the jamoalki comes from. Before I decided to make this official, I did want to talk to my 4 girls and let them know that, hey, look, I'm doing this podcast. It's about my depression, which they all know. To my knowledge, they don't all know that I had my suicide attempt, but I told them that I was doing this and that I had been doing it under an anonymous name, and I wanted it to be more, what did I say last show? Non-anonymous. I wanted to have an actual face. I wanted to there wanted to be a person behind this. But I also wanted them to be comfortable with it. I made sure to tell them that I wouldn't be saying, their names. I wouldn't be shouting out, who, what the JA stands for, what the MO stands for. But that it's smart. All you smart bears out there could figure it out at some point, I'm sure. I wanted to do that for them. And I needed to talk with my wife and, just a few other people to make sure that they were okay with this. That, hey, people go to my Twitter now, they're going to see me, first name, last name. If they send me an email and I reply back, they're going to know who I am. So I did that, and everybody, I guess expected makes me sound arrogant, but as I expected, everybody was like, sure, that's great. Whatever you need to do. So off I went. So I got that okay. So then I still hadn't made my decision on that. Some of the other things I was thinking about was that kind of not anonymous face of this podcast. And, if I reach out to somebody on Twitter, or if I, set up a profile on, some bulletin board, or there's lots of great websites out there that have kind of their anonymous chats, but you set up a username, and I want to be able to use this username and have me found later through Twitter or through my website. And I think, it being a face, a person, a real first name, last name, it makes things I say more valid. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm not sure if that makes sense. But, when I would post on Twitter as depressed, not dead, and my user, my name was one later, it clearly is, it kind of almost gives off the impression that this, I'm trying to hide something, which, in a lot of the forums and places where I would speak out, I think that would be understandable, but I think it also, that carries with it a certain amount of being unauthentic. And so I didn't want to diminish anything that I might say to someone if I'm offering up some encouragement, or if I disagree with someone, he's just some, whatever, I really, he's just some anonymous blah, blah, blah. He's just, whatever, trying to get a rise out of me. Trolling, that's the word I'm looking for, right? I could be a troll. And I don't want to come off that way. I don't know that I would or have. But, I have a friend of mine who I asked to listen to the podcast, and he listened to a few shows, and I believe he's all caught up right now. But he sent me an email after listening to a couple, and he flatteringly said that my podcast is important, in all caps, important. And yeah, I don't know if that's true, if it's not true, but to someone maybe it is. And if it is important, then it's worth having a name, a real person attached to it. So if like I said, I'm just kind of rambling now, but basically I wanted it to be a real face behind the podcast and the social face that's out there. So, so that's part of it, is it's important to me to be someone, an actual person, if I have the opportunity to reach out to someone to help them. And also I think it's important in my journey to kind of own up to my life, my situation a little bit more, kind of quickly getting to scary parts of all of this. My last trip back to see my girls and my folks, it came up that's when I talked to my girls about it, and then it came up between them and my mom, their grandma, about the podcast. And, my mom wanted to listen to the show, and I guess it was short-sighted of me not to see a future where she would be listening to this. I know I've probably already covered topics that she isn't interested in hearing, or at least comfortable hearing. And I know I've got topics that, again, she, won't make mom the happiest to hear her baby talking about. And that's going to be hard, and to do that, to tell those stories without censoring myself. But if I'm doing this, I got to go all in, I guess. So I'm owning up to who I am, who I am, the person behind the Depressed Not Dead podcast. That I am a person. I have actual body and fingers and toes and all those wonderful puppy dog tails or rattlesnake tails. What is the hell's that go? Snakes and snails and puppy dog tails. So I'm a boy with all that. And so that's who. So here I am. I'm jamoalki. I am. I have a first name. I go by JP. There's no sense boring you with last names. If you're interested, you can find it. But for this show, I'm going to be jamoalki, unless I get into a point where I'm actually talking with someone else, and then we may use real first names, just to make it less weird. But yeah, so here I am. I am depressed, not dead, but I am no longer that on the internet. I am jamoalki. And I appreciate you all listening to me. Hopefully I'm doing something here that will make my girls proud, that will make everybody in my life and family proud, both my family, my blood family, as well as my new family, additional family. I guess new family implies that they're replacing something. My additional family that I have here, that I'm growing and getting to know in this next stage of my life. So yeah, I think that's enough for now, don't you think? I've rambled on 25 minutes now. So hey, still kind of reach out to me. I would love to hear from anybody, everybody. You can reach me at jamoalki@gmail.com. So that's JAMOALKI. On Twitter at jamoalki. Going to be a Facebook page at some point, and many other things, but please kind of reach out to me. Please, I'm begging, I'm down on my knees. You can't see it, but I'm down on my knees with my 2 tattoos, begging you to send me an email. Let me know what's going on with you, how you think the show is going. So, thanks for listening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well, doing their best to be well. And I'll talk to you really soon. Thanks. Being unauthentic. Inauthentic? Unauthentic. Whatever.